Hi guys, change of scenery today. I'm in my kitchen. So welcome to your video on Sawm, on the pillar of fasting during the month of Ramadan within Islam. So you know by now what I'm going to ask you to do. Pop that title in your book, head up a new Word document if that's what you're doing with Sawm. Watch the spelling of Sawm, same letters as Swam, but not the same spelling. Okay. Just a quick quiz. If you're anything like my kids, you're eating your parents and carers out of house and home. Just always think about all the things you ate yesterday, from the moment you got up to the moment you went to bed. Now you don't have to write it down. You certainly don't need to tell me, but just have a little think. Every snack, every drink, every cup of coffee, everything you had, however little. Okay. Be honest. Yes, that includes you. You ate that scoop of Nutella with a spoon. So what I'm going to get you to do next, you're going to pause me, and there's a hopefully this is going to work, an online link there for you to have a look to introduce the month of Ramadan. Just a little reminder, the pillar of Sawm, okay, the month of Ramadan, is where Muslims fulfill the pillar of Sawm of fasting. Okay, so Ramadan is the name of the month, Sawm is the name of the pillar. So watch that clip for me. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, go on then. Watch this one as well, the Great British Ramadan True Tube clip. Then I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is to think about what typical things a Muslim will do when they fast. Okay, so we're going to come to that and give you a bit more information. So is Ramadan just about food? Well, not really. Remember who's exempt from fasting. So people who are traveling long journeys, people who are sick or ill, the elderly, the very young, under 12s, pregnant women, breastfeeding women, women who are on their period, and as well as not eating food or drink during daylight hours. Muslims are expected to recite or say Qur'an verses. They're meant to ask Allah for forgiveness, so they would be expected to pray more, to do more good deeds, to do more charitable deeds, and to pay zakat or fitr, that extra zakah payment, which they would do at the end of Ramadan in the festival of Eid or Fitr. We'll come back to the festival when we talk about Islamic festivals in a couple of lessons' time. So, purple pen time. You know what to do. What does the Quran actually say about fasting? So there's two quotes here, and I do want you to write them down, and I know the second one's a bit long, sorry. The first one's really good because it's getting you to see that fasting is something that was practiced by Muslims hundreds and thousands of years before the Quran was even written. This bit here where it says, it was enjoined on you as it was on those before you. So this indicates, this gives Muslims evidence that previous Muslims, prophets, for example, will have fasted. And then it says, whoever fasts during Ramadan with faith, seeking his reward, will have his past sins forgiven. Whoever prays during the nights in Ramadan with faith will have his past sins forgiven. So this gives us more evidence as well, and Muslims' evidence as to why it's so important during the month of Ramadan that you focus on their religion and their spirituality. Okay, so once you've got those two quotes in your book, we're going to just put into our book those reasons Muslims fast and who has to fast and what a typical day looks like. So it's a duty set out in the Quran. Fasting, as we've just said, was done by prophets, so Muslims have to too. It marks the month as well that the Prophet Muhammad began to receive the revelations of the Quran. So when we learned about the Quran about a month ago, 3 weeks ago now, the month of Ramadan is a holy month in the Muslim calendar. It's also, by going without food and drink during daylight hours, it shows self-discipline. I couldn't do it, you know this. And also shows obedience. And it gives Muslims a month in a year to really focus on their spirituality. by going without food and feeling true hunger makes Muslims think about what it's like for poor people, the plight of the poor. And as I said, Muslims are expected to focus on their righteousness, it says under me there, or taqwa, so their good deeds. And there's lots of opportunities during the month of Ramadan for Muslims to share fellowship with other Muslims. Now, there are exemptions. So these are the people who don't need to fast. You need to make sure you have these in your book. The under 12s, people who are ill. So if somebody, for example, using the dreaded C word, had coronavirus or was self-isolating, they wouldn't be expected to fast if this was Ramadan. The elderly, pregnant, breastfeeding women, women who are on their period, people travelling on a long journey. But if you are unable to fast for a genuine reason, it's expected that you will give to the poor instead. So you will give money. So some Muslims will donate the equivalent of meals in financial ways. So they are still sort of sacrificing things, just not food. So what does a typical day during Ramadan look like? Well, before dawn, Muslims will set their alarm clock, and that is before the sun rises in the morning. And in this time of year, so it's March at the moment, or the end of March, you know, it gets early, it gets light very early in the morning. So suhoor is eaten, which is a very simple meal with lots of complex carbohydrates to keep you full, lots of drink, water. And then from dawn to sunset, Muslims are not allowed to eat anything, nothing. Not allowed to drink anything, not even water. Not allowed to smoke if they smoke. And if they're married, they're not allowed to have sex. Muslims should also use their time wisely during the month of Ramadan to pray, to focus on Allah, to read the Qur'an, to visit the mosque. At nightfall, they will break their fast with iftar, which is a small snack, normally things like dates and a little glass of water. The Prophet Muhammad did that. Key reason for doing that, by the way, is if you do go without food and drink for that long and then you ate a massive meal, you'd be sick, or you'd feel really sick and horrible. So that's a reason why. And then about an hour later, families, communities will all come together in the evenings to share really gorgeous meals that they will have spent time preparing. And yeah, that means preparing all that food when they're really hungry. And as we said, the end of Ramadan itself, the end of the month, is celebrated with the festival Eid al-Adha, which we'll cover in a few lessons' time. So it's a busy time for Muslims. They don't just slob at home in their pyjamas and don't get out of bed. Students go to school, people go to work, and it does make a huge impact. You know, pupils that I've taught who fasted for Ramadan, if you've got any friends, you can ask them. They say that they feel really tired, they can get quite bad tempered, and they have to really focus on that if that's something they suffer with. If they get hangry, you know I get hangry, so you'd be expected to not take that out on people, and to do Ramadan properly is really hard. Remember, this is so you can't eat or drink during daylight hours. Now, as soon as it is dark enough to not be able to tell the difference between a black and a white thread, then a Muslim is allowed to eat and drink. And of course they will in the evening. So just to be clear, Muslims don't not eat or drink for a month. If you did that, if you didn't drink for a month, you'd die. So don't try that at home because it would be a bad idea. It's just during daylight hours. So make sure in your book you've got what Muslims do during Ramadan, okay, what they don't do, who's exempt from fasting, why Muslims fast, okay? So, little quick quiz. How do each of these pictures link to the month of Ramadan? And by the way, before some of you get silly, I know what you're like. This is a picture of dates. They're dates, okay? There's nothing else, they're just dates. Okay, so have a little look and see what you come up with. So we've got here neighbours exchanging food. We've got the crescent and star, moon. We've got some dates, we've got women making a donation, we've got a lantern, think about what that might mean, fasting, praying, men praying, a rug, or a prayer mat, Kaaba, so think about that. Okay, so what you should now have in your book is what Ramadan is, why Muslims fast during the month of Sawm, what they get out of it. You should have your quotes, people who are exempt, and what a typical day looks like. And to finish this off, we're going to look at our exam practice. You should have watched the 2 clips. There's also a worksheet on Show My Homework for you to have a read through as well. And if you want to print that off, highlight it, annotate it, stick it in your book, you can. So, excuse me, we've got a B question. Describe why Ramadan is an important month to Muslims. That's 5 marks. Question C, explain the importance of Sawm to Muslims. Remember to get those quotes in there. Now, the D question was actually in last year's actual GCSE Islam paper, and there were some really bad answers to this. And if you look at the statement, it is more difficult to fast in the UK during Ramadan. Okay, there's a couple of command words. All right. Now, first of all, a command word would be the word difficult. So it's difficult to fast, and also in the UK. Okay, so you don't talk about other countries, in the UK, and you're going to keep this UK focused. So to answer this question, what you need to do is think about what problems a British Muslim would find completing Ramadan. Okay, now if a Muslim lives in a Muslim country, then it would be likely that most of the people around them would be fasting as well. Things like cafes would be shut during daylight hours. There wouldn't be people walking around eating, that kind of thing. Think about school and how that might look different if all of your friends were fasting during Ramadan. And then think about the UK. Can you think of anything that would make it difficult for a Muslim to fast in the UK during Ramadan? Another thing to remember is that Ramadan, the time that Ramadan is, changes by 11 days every year, so it never comes at the same time. Last year's Ramadan was during the GCSEs in the summer, and actually, whilst a fatwa was issued, a directive from the sort of senior imams, Muslim students were told they didn't have to fast during Ramadan because it clashed with their GCSEs. Many of them did. I actually taught a student, and when we asked him, well, out of interest, why are you choosing still fast? And their answer was very, very clear: because Allah is more important to me than my GCSEs. It's an interesting idea, isn't it? So have a little think. Press pause on me while you think. Okay. So what you should have done is had a little think about what's difficult about fasting in the UK. Here are the ideas I want you to have considered. The GCSEs, if you haven't already got that. The fact that it's really hard for students to concentrate. You could also have mentioned just generally problems of being in school. So the smells from the school canteen if they're doing DT food and cooking. You could also talk about how it would be hard with people walking around, eating, drinking. All of that would be really, really difficult. That people who work or students at school would feel very tired in the afternoon. Now, in Muslim countries, they would close their businesses and people would go home. They'd have a sleep and a lie down just to rest. Well, that doesn't happen in this country. So they would be some of the issues that Muslims would face. On the other hand, Muslims fasting in other countries, it would be more easy, wouldn't it? They would have other people around them to help them to get through it. They wouldn't have maybe as much temptation. However, something to contrast here. Should this be an excuse? Should this be a reason for a Muslim not to fast? Well, no. They are showing jihad. They are showing their true strength, and they're showing that they're being tested. But overcoming that test is a sign of true jihad. It's being a true Muslim. So actually, just because it's difficult, that shouldn't really be an issue. Where you live in the world shouldn't be an issue according to Islam, because Sawm is one of the 5 pillars. Now, if you weren't sure about what this question entailed until I gave some examples, that's fine. If you rewind this little bit and if you replay the arguments and jot them down, then what I want you to do is have a go at answering these questions. Then what I'd like you to do is email them to me, m.@7valschool.com. That's M for Michelle, m.dodd, no S on the end. Or what you could do is take a picture of it and send that to me, and then I will give you some feedback. And well done those of you who are sending those exam questions in. I hope that helps. Enjoy this week. Coming up next will be about a 2-lesson project on Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca. Take care, guys. Keep safe. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.